is attached to the ureter. The ureter is a thick muscular tube that drains the fluid from the kidney into the bladder, okay? Now, a lumen is an opening in a structure, right? So, this, where's my other? I got 2 bent probes. Okay, no big deal, I'll use these. Okay, now, no, we don't want to use that one. This is better. Okay, now, you have 3 openings, right? Right? You have a hole here, you have a hole here, and you have a hole here, okay? Now, this fatty type of structure that has a lot of adipose tissue around it, okay, is the ureter, all right? This structure here is the ureter. The ureter has a lot of adipose tissue around it. Would you agree? All right, big lumen.
Right.
You would expect a big lumen, a big opening to drain that fluid from the, kidney to the bladder. All right, now, there are 2 additional openings here, okay? There's the renal artery and the renal vein. Now, the renal artery is actually bigger in structure, size-wise, than the renal vein. But I told you, veins typically have a bigger lumen or a bigger opening than arteries. So you can see that that opening is pretty big, much bigger than that guy, right? So that would be obviously the renal vein, okay? And that would be adjacent to it would be the renal artery. Okay? So you got ureter, renal artery, renal vein. All right. Now, also on your structure, or on your list, let's see, renal pyramid. All right, well, think of a pyramid. Think of the pyramids that you see on TV that they built in, Egypt, many years ago. All these brown structures here are shaped like pyramids, okay? So I can put a pin here, here, here. It doesn't matter which one I choose, which I'm going to choose.
So the dark brown circle roast beef is the pyramids.
They're shaped like pyramids. See?
That's the renal. All the little circles.
Right. Now, these here are much smaller, okay, but those are also renal pyramids. They're shaped like pyramids. All right. Now, does anybody have their lab manual out?
I can
Does anybody have the pictures of the, because they're nice color diagrams of the kidney?
Yeah.
What page you said?
I think it's on 379. Check
Check
379. I bet you I'm right.
Yeah, check it.
Is that right? Okay, now, look at this structure, okay? Again, these structures are very good for studying purposes, okay? That's what I would use. Because these kidneys look exactly like you see here, pretty much the same thing. All right, you can see the ureter, you can see the renal artery, renal vein, all right? You can see the, let's see, what structure did I go over just a second ago? I went over the pyramids, okay? You can see the pyramids. And next to the pyramids, okay, are the renal papilla, the P-A-P-I-L-L-A. So I'm going to have a pin like right in the middle of the pyramid, and the structure adjacent to it will be the renal papilla.
So it's the white one?
Or is it the line? It's like the line
It's like the
between.
line. It's like the line, okay? Because the white is the adipose tissue.
Right.
And
All
what is
right.
that called? The papilla?
Papilla. So that structure will divide, let's say, the adipose tissue from the renal pyramid. Okay? All right. Now, also on your list is the hilium, right? H-I-L-U-M. Now, if you look at the diagram that Gino has there, it encompasses 3 structures, right? It encompasses the ureter, the renal artery, and the renal vein. So I really can't put a pin in the structure. Well, I can, okay, but what I'll have is I'll have like a little piece of white paper, and I'll have an arrow going to the left and an arrow going to the right, which tells you it encompasses these 3 structures, the ureter, the renal artery, and the renal vein. It encompasses all 3. And you can definitely see that on page 379 in your lab manual. All right. In addition, you have your...
the helium now again?
The helium
It's all three.
encompasses 3 structures. The helium is from here to here. It includes the ureter, it includes the renal artery, and it includes the renal vein. If you go to page 379, that's what you'll see.
And so you say you'll have a pin like where?
I'll have a pin like right about here, and I'll have like a little white sticker on it like I had in the midterm, and I'll have an arrow going from here to here, which tells you it encompasses these 3 structures. Okay? All right, now, also on your list is the renal capsule. Think about a capsule on a medication bottle, right? It's on top, right? So the renal capsule is located near your blood vessels, near the renal vein or renal artery. So I'm going to have a pin like probably right about there. And that is very similar to what you see on page 379 in your lab manual. That's the renal capsule. That's the renal capsule, okay? All right. Now, you also have the major and minor calyx. Now, major meaning a larger structure than minor. If you look at your diagram, okay, that's okay. Your minor calyx, as I told you last week, is at the side of the kidney that's more narrow, if you will, or where you have less adipose tissue, and the major calyx is where you have more adipose tissue. So if you look at these kidneys, okay, or the cross section, all right, you've got more fat tissue in this area here, okay, than down here. Still quite a bit of adipose tissue here, but probably a little bit more in here than down here. So whatever major and minor calyx, I will have those two pins at separate areas at opposite ends of the kidney, okay?
So major
So
is more fat.
the one that contains the more adipose tissue will be the major calyx, and the one that contains less adipose tissue, smaller in size, lesser, get the word, will be the minor calyx. Okay? All right. On your list, I think also, renal medulla and renal cortex. All right, all you have to do is understand the two terms. Okay. Adrenal cortex, adrenal medulla, cerebral cortex. Cortex in anatomy and physiology refers to the outer layer. Medulla refers to the inner layer. So very simply, I can put a pin here, that's the cortex, and a pin there would be the medulla. Cortex, medulla. Cortex, medulla. Cortex, medulla.
How-
Outer, inner.
So where's the
How,
capsule then?
yeah.
The capsule is located near the ureter, the renal artery, and the renal vein. It's located near the blood vessels.
So where would the capsule be? Like
The capsule, like right about here.
Right there. Okay.
Right about there, okay?
And so
So-
the
Capsules
cortex.
near.
Cortex, right, outer, medulla, cortex, medulla, cortex, medulla, cortex, medulla. Show the picture, Gino, if you look at it, you can hold that up. Thank you, right? Look at the cortex, right? Outer, medulla, inner, outer, inner. That's what those two terms mean, that's as clear as day.
Cortex outer.
Cerebral cortex is the outer layer of your brain that encompasses gray matter. Adrenal medulla is the inner layer of the adrenal gland, which makes epinephrine and norepinephrine. The adrenal cortex makes separate hormones, cortisol, glucocorticoids, et cetera, et cetera. All right, now, renal column. All right, renal column. Columns on somebody's porch are square-shaped, okay? So, well, these are kind of beat up, but it's that structure right about there. I can use that. See how it's sort of like rectangular or square? That's a renal column. So look for a square-shaped structure. Just think of columns that you'd see on somebody's porch, right? And a column is a rectangular type of shape. Okay? I'm sure you have neighbors who have columns on their porches. I would think so. No?
I live in an apartment.
Yeah,
Oh.
I've seen them.
Okay, well, you know what they look like. You drive by them, whatever. All right, the last two structures, I believe, are the renal pelvis and renal sinus. Now, let's look at the picture, Gino. Okay, now the fat and renal sinus, okay, is right in the middle, and the renal pelvis is also in the middle. Now, fat and renal sinus, so look for adipose tissue, okay? A lot of adipose tissue right about in here, right? The white is the adipose tissue. As I told you last week, I will put a pin in the white. I can put it on this half or this half, and the white is the renal, the fat and the renal sinus, and the beige or the brown, as I told you last week, will be the renal pelvis.
So the beige brown is the pelvis.
Well, I just don't want you to think about it that way, okay? Think about what the terms mean. Fat and renal sinus. Look for a lot of adipose tissue, and it's not all the white adipose tissue. So if I put a pin in the beige colored structure, I would hope that you would not label that fat and renal sinus. We're looking at all the white. All the white is the adipose tissue along with the yellow. And the yellow goes with the ureter.
But how would I distinguish the
From the minor.
fat and renal sinus, but then from the major and minor
Minor.
calyx?
This one, yeah.
Because
Different
if you
area.
look at the diagram on page 379, the fat and the renal sinus and the renal pelvis are more in the middle. Middle. Whereas the major and minor calyx are at the
Top or
ends.
bottom?
ends.
At the ends. At the ends of the kidney. That's the difference.
The fat and renal sinus, and what else is in the middle?
That's the fat and the renal sinus is near the renal pelvis. And then the major and minor calyx are at opposite ends. Right?
Towards the ends.
My right hand, my left hand.
Okay.
All right? And that's about it.